Hi everybody, my name's Emma Stimson. I'm a naturopath here at Women's Health and Hormones. Today I wanted to do a Facebook Live looking at the effect of strict weight loss dieting on long-term healthy weight management. And I know this is something a lot of you are interested in. How can you maintain a healthy weight long-term and optimize your well-being at the same time? There's a lot of new research looking into long-term healthy weight management strategies, because this is something that affects so many of us, women, men, children, all aspects of our population. And in some of the new data that's coming through, around 62% of people are actively trying to lose weight at this point in time. And a greater percentage of those are actually women. So I know this is something that's of interest to all my patients and probably everybody who's following along in the group or on our Facebook page as well. The first thing I wanted to say to you is stop blaming yourself. If you feel like you're above your most healthy weight and it's a situation that you want to change, and you probably have already tried to change it by following a variety of different weight loss strategies that might have worked for other people or not worked for other people, if it hasn't worked for you, stop blaming yourself. It's not your fault. In actual fact, the weight loss diets that have been promoted in our broader community have probably set you up to fail, unfortunately. And I'll explain a little bit more to you about why that is the case. But just take the pressure off. It's not your fault. There's so many factors that are involved, and there's a lot of reasons why you may have ended up in a situation where you feel as though you're above your most healthy weight. But the good news is that there is hope. There are things that we can do to change the situation. If we look at the research, extensive research is telling us that around 95% of people who do lose weight through strict weight loss dieting will regain that weight, and within 5 years, the majority of those people will weigh more than they weighed when they initially started to try to lose weight. So if dieting hasn't worked for you and you found that you haven't been able to find a long-term solution to help you manage your weight in the way that you'd like to, you're not alone. This is something that affects everybody. And unfortunately, you know, the way that we've been taught to think about our weight and address issues associated with weight management hasn't been particularly helpful. And all of the research is confirming that. I've got a few notes because there's a lot that I want to talk about today. So when I look away, it's just because I want to refer back to my notes. It's important for you also to know that there's also a really strong link between strict weight loss dieting and the onset of eating disorders like anorexia and bulimia and compulsive overeating. So it's another really good reason to think carefully about what's going on with your body and changes or strategies that you might like to implement in the safest way possible. You see, weight loss isn't so simple. When we look at the reasons that people gain weight, that's a little bit simpler. We know that the most common reason for weight gain is if your energy intake exceeds your energy excess or your energy output. So, and it leads to a state where your body's in energy excess. So you're taking more energy into your body than you're using to maintain your body throughout the day. And again, that can happen for a variety of different reasons. Simply overeating is probably the most common one. We now know that it's not as simple as just putting it down to a single macronutrient. Or the reason people are overweight is because they eat too much sugar. The reason people are overweight is because they eat too much fat. The research is really conclusive now that that's not the case. The reason people are overweight is generally because they're just eating more of everything, and it's more than their body actually requires for their energy output during the day. However, what happens is if you've been eating more than your body needs and it's led you to a situation where you gain a little bit of weight, you might think, you know, in a very simple way, oh, well, the best thing I can do is just cut back. If I just cut back a bit, then my weight will drop down to what it used to be. And depending on how much weight you've gained and what circumstances are occurring in your life at that point in time, that may be of some benefit. But we also know that your weight set point can change. So even though you might have realised that you've gained some weight and you want to reverse that situation, so you start to cut back on your energy intake or the amount of food that you're consuming, if your weight set point has also increased, you'll be fighting a bit of a losing battle. It won't matter how much you cut back, your body will continually try to push you back up to that higher weight. So there's been a change in weight set point. And the change in weight set point is one of the most common reasons it's so difficult to lose weight. Because once that weight set point has increased, your body will strive to maintain that. Even though you consciously are not choosing that, your weight set point might have increased to a size 16, for example, or an 18, and in your mind you're wanting it to be a size 12 or 10 or 14 or whatever that may be. You're fighting a losing battle. Your body's fighting against you, and it's continually working towards maintaining that higher weight set point. And how we see this in practical terms is that once people restrict what they're eating, they start thinking more about food. So it has a psychological impact where as soon as you start to feel deprived, you start thinking about food. If someone says to you, cut back, you need to stop eating sugar, you need to stop eating this, you need to stop eating the other, what's the first thing sometimes the only thing you can think about is those things that you can't eat. It's like if I say to you, don't think about pink elephants, don't think about pink elephants, don't think about pink elephants. What's the only thing you can think of is pink elephants. And our bodies and our psychology work in the same way when it comes to restricting foods. So that's on a psychological level, but we also know there are physiological changes that occur. Our body's metabolic rate will also drop in order for, as our bodies are trying to increase our weight back up to that natural set point or that increased set point, our body's metabolic rate will drop. And also, when you lose weight, you're not just losing body fat. So when you lose weight, you're also going to be losing some water. You're going to be losing, of course, a little bit of body fat. You'll also be losing muscle mass. And now research is telling us it's likely that you'll be losing a little bit of bone density as well. And so you might have gained body fat in that time when you were eating to more than your body required, but this process of losing weight, as you lose weight, it's not just body fat that you lose, it's these other types of body composition as well that also go down. And again, that reinforces the lowered metabolic rate. So this is why for many people, weight loss can be so difficult, and it's not just losing weight, it's maintaining the weight loss. And the more times you've tried to lose weight, the more times your body will go through this process and the metabolic rate will continue to drop. So for a person who's dieted a lot over the years in an attempt to lose weight, and if they've done that a lot over many different occasions, on many different occasions, they'll be more adversely affected than a person who's never dieted before. So it's really, really interesting research. So if you're above your most healthy weight and you want to change the situation in a way that's sustainable and, hi Jan, in a way that's sustainable and will have a positive long-term impact on your body composition, your health and your well-being, how do you do it? What can you do? What changes can you make? My first suggestion to you is to take a holistic approach. We now know that whilst weight gain seems to be quite simple in terms of energy in versus energy out. There's too much energy in, not enough energy going out. Weight loss is very different. So it's really important to look at all aspects of what's going on with your health and well-being. How are you sleeping? How's your mood? How are your stress levels? We also know chemical exposure can have a significant impact on long-term healthy weight management. What's happening with your exercise routines? What's happening with your daily life? What's happening with your lifestyle? How much time do you spend sitting in the car, commuting to work, commuting home? And how much personal time do you have to really take care of yourself and take care of your health and your well-being? What's your healthy blood glucose regulation like? How well is your body going at maintaining healthy blood glucose regulation? All of these areas can have a significant impact on long-term healthy weight management. It's so important not to just focus on that number on the scale. Focus as much as you can on well-being first. At the end of the day, there is nothing that you can do that will control that number on the scale. That number will go up and it will go down depending on a variety of different factors, that a lot of them are out of your control. And especially for the women that I see in clinic, if you're one of my patients, you'll be aware of the effect that your hormones can have on healthy weight management, especially for women in their 40s and 50s and 60s who are either still experiencing premenstrual symptoms or who are perimenopausal. This can have a significant impact on the number that you see in your scales. You'd be amazed at the number of my patients who tell me, in the first half of my cycle, I always weigh this amount, but in the second half of my cycle, my weight is always 2 or 3 kilos more, and there doesn't seem to be anything I can do about this. And it becomes, very frustrating when you don't see that number changing on the scale, even though you're trying to make changes in your lifestyle to influence that number on the scale. A lot of my patients feel so frustrated that it's not working, that they decide that the strategies that they're using aren't worthwhile, and the effort they're putting into looking after their health isn't worthwhile. But I can tell you that's not the case. If you continue focusing on taking care of your body in the best way that you possibly can, your weight will be the healthiest that is possible for you and your body type at this time in your life. So try and focus on how you feel rather than the number on the scales. There are better ways of measuring what's going on with body composition if you're interested in the numbers. But again, I'm not sure how beneficial focusing on the numbers is in the long term. But we know there's other methods rather than just measuring weight that's beneficial. And probably the most simple thing you can do is just get a tape measure and take a waist circumference and maybe a hip circumference and a bust circumference. But just do it once a month. There's no need to do it all the time, because again, if you're one of my patients who experience premenstrual weight gain, what will happen is if you're taking those measurements every week, you're always going to see them increase in the premenstrual phase, and you're always going to see them come down at the end of your period. But if you take the measurements once a month and you get an idea of what's happening at the end of your period, and you choose that same day every month to take a measurement, it gives you a much better indicator of what's really going on with your body composition. Some of my patients like to use a clothes-o-meter as well. So just choose a pair of, maybe some clothing that's quite tight fitting, and just try it on once a month and just see if it's feeling more comfortable. And, just even with your day-to-day clothes, if your clothes are feeling looser, it means you're heading in the right direction. In terms of more scientific scanning, there's DEXA scanning, which can help to delineate. It's probably the best form of body composition scanning. It helps to delineate the different types of body composition and what's going on. And also bioimpedance analysis can be helpful too. But again, it's not the be-all and end-all. And BIA has some limitations associated with it as well. So always just focusing on the numbers isn't necessarily going to give you the best long-term outcome. Although having some way to measure how your body is transitioning over a longer period of time is really useful. Yeah, and in that respect as well, when we're talking about weight and what's actually happening with your body composition, don't forget the strategies that you might use partly is dependent on how much weight you may have gained. If you've only gained a small amount of weight and you really are quite close to a healthy weight for your body type, you're going to use different strategies than a person who maybe has gained more weight, or maybe feel as though they're significantly overweight or significantly above their most healthy weight. So if you've only gained a small amount of weight, the best thing you can do initially is prevent further weight gain. And actually this is the case for everybody. Preventing future weight gain is crucial, and particularly for women who have gained a small amount of weight, using strategies that don't that help to lower your body set points crucial, or that don't have a negative impact on that weight set points crucial, to prevent that slow progressive weight gain that can occur over a longer period of time. It's always crucial to listen to your body. Your body will tell you what's going on. Research in nutrition changes all of the time. There was a lot of research a while ago looking at the low-fat diet. There was a lot of research more recently looking at the low-carb diet. There's research looking at low FODMAP diets. There's a whole range of different dietary approaches. But we know this information about nutrition is always changing, and if you can instead learn to listen to your body and eat in response to the signals your body's sending you, it's of great benefit. If you're above your most healthy weight and you want to change the situation, we now know that one of the most important things you can do is awaken or come back into connection with the sensations of physical hunger and physical fullness that your body's sending you. Reducing non-hungry eating is a really easy initial strategy that we can put into place to start to make a change with long-term healthy weight management. If you have been eating to energy excess, consuming more energy than your body requires, it means that at some stage you've switched off to that signal that's telling you, oh, I've had enough. It's important to reawaken that signal and become aware of when you're doing non-hungry eating and try to minimize that as much as you can. So what I would recommend is that you figure out what that feels like for you. What does it feel like for you when your body's physically hungry? And what does it feel like for you when you feel as though your body's had enough and you feel satisfied? If you can identify those signals and when those signals are occurring, and you can try and eat in accordance to those signals, you will naturally start to reduce some of the non-hungry eating that you may have been doing. And it's a really, really useful tool. In order to get a really good grounding in those signals, though, it's also important that you slow down your speed of eating. If you eat really quickly, it's almost impossible to recognize that signal that your body's sending you that you've had enough. And it's really easy to overeat so that you end up at overfull. At the same time, if you let yourself get too hungry, like really, really, really hungry, over hungry, it's very hard to eat slowly. And it also means that it's very easy to end up at the point where you're overfull, where you've had too much, because you miss that signal that your body's telling you that you've had enough. So try and work towards slowing down the speed of your eating and start to recognize when your body is sending you a hunger signal or when you've had enough. Conversely, for women who have used strict weight loss dieting to lose weight, one of the ways that our bodies try and get us back up to that higher set point, remember our bodies are working against us in this situation, is to increase feelings of hunger. So if you've used strict weight loss dieting, your reliance on those signals of hunger and fullness might be a little bit different, because one of the ways our bodies try to get us back up to that higher set point weight is to increase hunger. So this is just something to be mindful of. And as we continue along, I'll let you know about some specific changes that you can make with the types of foods you're eating to help to reduce that overriding feeling of hunger that sometimes develops when you're trying to reduce your food intake in order to lose weight. As part of this process of self-care, of focusing on well-being, we know now that pulsing the way that you're eating, especially if you have a significant amount of weight to lose, pulsing the way that you're eating can be really useful. And what this means is that just slightly restricting your food intake for 2 weeks so that you start to lose weight, and then for the next 2 weeks, going into a weight maintenance phase where you're not restricting. Hi, Kerry. And then the following 2 weeks, pulsing back into slight restriction so that you're starting to lose some weight, and the following 2 weeks, maintaining weight. This can be very, very helpful in lowering your body's set point. And we also know that it's almost like giving your body a break from any sort of restrictions at all. And it can also, so it can assist with lowering the body set point, and it can also help with the increased hunger that some people experience when they try and lose weight, especially with strict weight loss dieting, which we know doesn't work in the long term anyway, so don't do it. Take home message there. We really need to continue working on balancing our nutritional knowledge with our intuitive body feelings. So both sides of the balance there are equally important. You know, I've got some patients who've got fantastic nutritional knowledge. They know everything there is to know about foods and nutrients and macronutrients and micronutrients and kilojoules and calories and energy and what's going in and what's going out, but they've totally lost contact with how their body actually feels, those intuitive body feelings. And I have other patients in clinic who've got really great intuitive body feelings. You know, they've never really dieted or restricted their food intake in the past, and it's easy for them to eat in accordance to their hunger and fullness signals, but their knowledge of nutrition is not so great. And that's where we get the balance better, by helping them to improve their nutritional knowledge and balance that out with the intuitive body feelings. They're both important. But a lot of the patients I've seen have tried to lose weight many times in the past, and therefore they have an idea about what they should be doing, or I've tried this or I've tried that, and I know about this and I know about that, but they're not seeing the positive results, and it can become very self-defeating. And then a lot of women say to me, oh, it's just me, you know, I've got no willpower. But remember, willpower doesn't work because your body's fighting against you. Your body's trying to get you back up to that higher weight set point. Stop blaming yourself. It's not your fault. Like I was saying before, it's really important to eat slowly and enjoy the food that you're eating, you know. So many of my patients who've practiced strict weight loss dieting in the past get cravings for foods that they might have restricted previously. And sometimes those food cravings can become overwhelming, but they feel incredibly guilty for giving into the food cravings. So they might, you know, have worked out what they're going to eat during the day, and they've tried to eat in accordance to their hunger signals, and, you know, but they're eating a restrictive diet, and they've, you know, convinced that they're never going to eat chocolate again. And they've so focused on the restriction that what happens is that then they get incredible cravings for foods that they've restricted, and they stand in the pantry with the door closed while the kids are in bed and they consume a family block of chocolate. It happens all the time, you know, and then that creates a lot of negative feelings. So it can affect your self-confidence, and it can affect the way that you feel about yourself. So if that's happened to you as well, again, know that you're not alone. It's happened to lots of people, and foods can be very addictive, especially the foods that are processed foods that, you know, we've eaten a lot of the times in the past for a variety of different reasons. They've actually done a scale looking at the most addictive foods compared to the least addictive foods, and I'll read that out to you actually because it's very interesting. You might be able to relate. From number 1 to 10, the most addictive foods are chocolate, ice cream, French fries, pizza, cookies, chips, cakes, popcorn, which has been buttered, cheeseburgers, and muffins. There's no surprises there, is there? And on the other side of the scale, if we look at the least addictive foods, again, the top 10 least addictive foods are apple, corn, with no butter or salt, salmon, bananas, carrots, plain, brown rice, plain with no sauce, water, cucumbers with no dip, broccoli, and beans with no sauce. So over your lifetime, if you've been eating a lot of foods from that highly addictive list, it can change what's going on in the reward center of your brain. We know that those foods do increase dopamine levels. And so sometimes when you try and withdraw those foods or restrict those foods quite heavily, you will go through a withdrawal phase where the cravings will increase both physically, but also for that psychological reason we were talking about before associated with restriction of any food. That all or nothing thinking will start to creep in, you know. And then once you've eaten the family block of chocolate, you think, oh, damn it, I've blown it now. I'm just going to eat whatever the hell I want. So we want to try and work with your body's physiology and work with your body's psychology as well in order to help you to get good results and good improvements in a way that's very sustainable and feels very natural and doesn't require a lot of control, because control doesn't work. Willpower and control don't work in this situation. So we need to find other strategies that are more helpful. So dopamine's an interesting chemical in the brain. There's a lot of ways that you can increase dopamine that aren't food related. So if you're trying to achieve your most healthy weight and you feel as though you're above your most healthy weight and you want to change that situation, see what other things you can do to help to increase dopamine levels in your brain that'll give you that same feeling which will naturally help to reduce some of the food cravings. So massage therapy is fantastic for increasing dopamine in the brain. So if you're about to embark on, you know, a period of health rejuvenation, I would definitely, and especially if you're concerned about your weight management, would definitely recommend including some massages, especially in the early days when you're trying to transition from a more addictive diet to a less addictive diet. As you'll find that as you progress along that pathway and you've made those changes and you're eating less addictive foods, the cravings for the foods that are highly addictive will naturally start to reduce anyway. And we know that once you start to make those changes, if you can naturally experience a feel of satisfaction with the foods that you're eating, and you're not feeling insatiable hunger, and you're not thinking about food all the time, and you're not craving all the food all the time, and this whole psychological and physical process isn't going on in your body, it's a really good indicator that your natural set point, your natural weight set point has started to reduce. And that's exactly what we're looking for. So supporting dopamine through other activities like massage or exercise can be fantastic. Meditation, breathing, yoga. Sometimes they've even done research looking at gaming as well. Like if you're a person who likes gaming, you might think, oh, that's not going to help my weight management, spending time sitting there gaming, but it can increase dopamine. So it's interesting. So when we're also making this transition over to a less addictive diet, we know that increasing protein intake can help. So protein is important for long-term healthy weight management. Increasing protein to about 30% of your total daily energy intake is a really good step. So that would be an easy strategy that you can start to implement while you're moving from a more addictive diet to a less addictive diet. And talking about those addictive foods and the type of foods, you know, when they're looking at the research between the benefits of a low-fat diet and a low-carb diet, it's not just fats that are making us fat. It's not just carbohydrates that are making us fat. It's not just sugar that's making us fat. The research is now telling us it's the combination of those foods that are increasing weight because of the effect that it has on the reward center of the brain and dopamine. So the more addictive foods are the ones that actually combine sugar and fat together, or that combine, you know, fats and salts and carbohydrates. That's why pizza's so interesting. It's so high up that scale because there's sugar involved, there's carbohydrate involved, and there's fat involved. You're getting this like triple whammy. So it's the combinations of those highly palatable foods and the normally highly processed foods that are so addictive. So increasing your protein intake will definitely help you to swap over to a less addictive diet where you feel like you've got much more natural control, or natural not control, but natural regulation of your food intake without having to control it. And also choosing a low to moderate palatability diet. So you want to enjoy the foods that you're eating, but at the same time, if you're only focusing on eating foods that are highly palatable, particularly highly processed, highly palatable foods, even if you've reduced your energy intake, but you're still eating those foods, it has a really adverse effect on the body's natural set point. Try and choose a diet, and it may take a little bit of time to transition into this, but try and choose, you know, the types of foods to eat or foods to consume that are lower in palatability. You know, natural whole foods that don't necessarily give you the same hit that you'd be getting from those highly palatable processed foods are much better for long-term healthy weight management. And I know that's sad. We all like eating highly palatable foods, but that's one of the ways that as a community and a society in the industrialized worlds that we live in, that we've ended up in the situation we're in because of these highly processed, the high availability and affordability of these highly processed, highly palatable foods. So swapping over to a whole foods diet with a whole foods nutrition or way of eating with less of those highly palatable foods over a period of time is very helpful. Yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about, or interesting thing to consider, how you can do that in a way that feels free to you and not restrictive. Because as soon as you really restrict your food intake, that psychology is going to kick in again that says, don't think about pink elephants, don't think about pink elephants, don't think about pink elephants. And then that's the only thing you can think about. So it's very interesting. It's almost like you've got to trick your body and trick your mind in order to lower the body's natural set point, natural weight set point, to get long-term improvements. Always be kind to yourself as well. Whenever we're changing any habit, it can be difficult, especially in the world that we live in. Like, we live in a world where we're surrounded by these highly palatable, highly addictive, highly processed foods. We're absolutely surrounded by them. You know, you might find that they're in your workplace. You might find that they're everywhere. They're all around us. So just be really kind to yourself. And it's normal to eat every type of food some of the time, but it's not normal to have a diet full of highly processed, highly palatable foods all the time. So I think a helpful way to think about it, as well as a way that our kids are learning in school, thinking about foods as sometimes foods and everyday foods. And again, there's some variability here. For people who are highly addicted to those highly addictive foods, even having those foods sometimes can start to trigger a lot of food cravings again. But for many of us, you know, having those foods occasionally seems to be okay. We can manage that, and we can tolerate that, and we can deal with it. So sometimes foods and everyday foods is a really great way to think about it. In terms of asking for help, something else that I just wanted to acknowledge here is that there's a lot of research linking childhood trauma and abuse to significant weight gain. So if you are a person who may have experienced abuse or trauma during your childhood, I think it's really relevant to acknowledge that and acknowledge the impact that that may be having on your plans to achieve and maintain your most healthy weight long term. And this is not something that's just going to go away. So I really encourage you to make sure that you get help and seek out some counselling, go and see a psychologist to get the help that you need to process any trauma that you may have experienced, because the impact on long-term healthy weight management is huge. I really hope that you've enjoyed the information that I've presented today, and that it's been beneficial for you and given you a little bit more insight into what might be going on in your body. If you feel like this is an area that you'd like to explore further and you'd like to find out more about how I might be able to help you on a deeper level, always feel free to reach out and get in touch. And you can message me here on Facebook or email the clinic at info@balancehormones.com.au, or you can also give us a call on 5986 5170. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll be in touch soon. Bye for now.